fun to watch. I think I watched Indiana State and Iowa. Caitlin Clark played about the same last year, so I watched a lot of basketball.
Yes, he had an incredible run that was exciting to watch all the way through. And if you saw Iowa or Indiana State last season, you are well aware of how thrilling Caitlin Clark's ascent has been as she elevated each game to the status of a major event. However, none anticipated that the basketball world would be completely upended this week when the Indiana Fever shocked everyone with a decision that rocked the WNBA as a whole. Stephanie White, the seasoned coach who once led the team with authority, was abruptly fired, and taking her place is such a huge name that it hardly seems genuine. The Hall of Famer, legend, and icon Larry Bird alters the game's atmosphere just by being there. Caitlin Clark, the most talented player in women's basketball, was briefly stunned by this news, because this wasn't only a switch for coaching. No writer, expert, or even the most ardent Fever fan could have foreseen this shocking action. At Gamebridge Fieldhouse, the audience halted in shock. Silence hung in the air for a while, and then the announcement's weight caused it to explode. There was more to this than organizational news. The history of women's basketball saw a dramatic change. It's the kind of pivotal moment that leaves supporters wondering whether the WNBA's future is being rewritten in front of them. Caitlin Clark wasn't just another rookie when she first joined the WNBA. She was a sensation, a player who turned the Indiana Fever from a failing squad into the most talked-about team in the league. The fact that ticket sales have increased by more than 400% is evidence of this. Once half-empty venues were suddenly crowded fortresses humming with spectators eager to see her every move. And virtually overnight, the Fever went from being ignored to the most sought-after ticket in town. But because large sponsors and international businesses hurried to associate their names with Caitlin Clark, understanding that her presence alone could boost their marketing, her influence extended well beyond the court. With each highlight, assist, and crucial shot going viral in a matter of minutes, and placing her at the forefront of national sports discussions, social media only served to intensify the fervor. And she was more than simply a team leader in a single season. She was redefining a franchise's whole identity and establishing herself as the WNBA's cultural center. However, the Fever system started to show signs of weakness as Caitlin Clark's star power increased. Because tension with head coach Stephanie White was building behind the scenes, even though the public admired her bold, instinct-driven style. A well-respected leader, but one whose methods frequently ran counter to Clark's innate cadence. And it was evident in pivotal games where cautious play calling slowed down Clark's inventiveness. Even while the crowd were electrified by her daring risks, there were times when she was benched for them. In interviews, Clark also acknowledged that she occasionally felt constrained, stating that the essence of basketball is about momentum, instinct, and having faith in your abilities rather than continuously holding back out of fear of making a mistake. This discrepancy sparked a flurry of discussion, with some claiming that the Fever was squandering her generational talent in a system that was too secure, too inflexible, and unwilling to fully utilize Caitlin Clark's abilities. How long before something had to change? Was the obvious question that fans started to ask. That tipping point arrived sooner than anyone anticipated, because the front office made the kind of decision that immediately changed the course of their season after weeks of growing frustration and a run of games where the Fever appeared hesitant despite Clark's genius. They fired Stephanie White in a move so shocking that even insiders who typically get leaks were left reeling. Additionally, they failed to select a capable substitute or a ready-to-step-in aide to replace her. By bringing in Larry Bird, a name so iconic that it sent shockwaves across the basketball world, they got right to the heart of the matter. Bird is Indiana basketball royalty, not just a coach or administrator. The personification of a time characterized by tenacity, might, and an unwavering determination to succeed. Fans quickly saw that this went beyond simply finding a fresh voice on the sidelines. This had to do with a whole identity reset for the Fever. A declaration that the team was prepared to risk everything on success, even if it meant eschewing convention and venturing into uncharted territory with one of the most recognizable personalities in sports history. Basketball isn't the only thing that comes to mind when you hear the name Larry Bird. This is the man who made Indiana a symbol of hoops culture, so you think of greatness itself. With 3 titles, 3 MVP honors, and innumerable memorable events that made his name in history, the French-lick youngster became the NBA's dominant force. As an executive, Bird assembled competitive squads and led the Indiana Pacers to championships, demonstrating that his game sense is just as sharp as his jump shot. His legacy continued after he retired, and now, that same iconic presence is entering the WNBA, a league that is already seeing a boom in popularity, but is about to gain the kind of recognition and attention that only a person like Bird can provide. And the message is obvious for Caitlin Clark. It's no longer only that she has the fever. It's about joining forces with a basketball legend whose background, style, and charisma might propel her and the team to heights no one could have predicted. And the sports world is watching because everything changes when Larry Bird's name is attached to it. The prospect of Caitlin Clark and Larry Bird collaborating feels more like the beginning of a revolution than just a coaching change. Because Clark delivers freshness, firepower, and the charismatic star quality that has already made the WNBA a must-watch sport, while Bird brings decades of experience, a wealth of strategy, and the aura of a champion. And when those two forces come together, the Fever get a blueprint for domination rather than just a fresh playbook. Every game turns into a demonstration of skill and originality, and every drill into a masterclass. All of a sudden, Indiana is more than simply a squad battling for respectability. It serves as the hub for women's basketball, the spot where media, sponsors, and fans all look. The Bird-Clark Alliance has the ability to attract huge sponsorship deals, record-breaking ticket sales, and an explosion of media coverage that could propel the WNBA to unprecedented heights. Off the court, the impact is equally potent. As the Fever become more than just a franchise, they become a force that changes the course of a sport. This collaboration is already having an impact that extends well beyond the hardwood. National networks began clearing primetime slots. Ticket resellers saw prices skyrocket as fans rushed to be a part of this historic new era, and corporate sponsors who had been circling Caitlin Clark suddenly jumped in with bigger checks the moment Larry Bird's name was linked to the Indiana Fever. Additionally, social media has turned into a never-ending flurry. Every training video, rumor, and highlight becomes viral in a matter of seconds, spreading the Fever into discussions about topics far outside women's basketball. It's even more significant culturally, because young girls and boys all over America now witness not only a sensational rookie who is redefining what's possible, but also a Hall of Fame legend standing next to her, fusing the past and the future in a way that demonstrates that women's sports can command the same level of respect, gravity, and commercial power as anything in the men's game. Furthermore, the Fever are more than just a basketball team anymore. They are now the public face of a movement that is upending the whole sports industry. However, there is always a pushback to seismic changes. Furthermore, Larry Bird is renowned for his unyielding demands for greatness, his no-nonsense leadership, and his uncompromising approach. So not everyone is sure this bet will succeed. And the unanswered question is straightforward. Can Caitlin Clark, a young rookie with generational talent, handle that kind of pressure? Or will Bird's skill be compromised by the weight of her renowned shadow? Critics are immediately pointing out the danger, claiming that Bird comes from an old-school perspective where structure and discipline dictate every choice, whereas Clark has battled hard for the freedom to play naturally and lead without micromanaging. And that altercation might set off fireworks in the background. Fans are raving about the ideal duo, but experts caution that the same passion that makes Bird a legend may also push Clark's independence to the brink, making this partnership either the WNBA's greatest achievement or one of its most audacious errors. The WNBA may be reshaped for decades by what occurs next. Because this change is about altering the rules for women's basketball, not just about one team or one season. The impact of Larry Bird and Caitlin Clark's success will also go well beyond Indiana, making every team reevaluate how much influence superstar players should have, how much crossover legends from the men's game can contribute, and how brave a league must be if it genuinely hopes to break down barriers and attract international attention. Rumors are already circulating that rival teams are keeping a close eye on things. I'm wondering if this experiment could have a cascading effect that changes league-wide marketing tactics, coaching hires, and sponsorship agreements all at once. Additionally, supporters feel as though they are witnessing the beginning of a new age in which the WNBA is demanding recognition with powerful acts like these rather than fighting for it. Nothing in women's basketball will ever look the same again, regardless of whether it ends in glory or mayhem. Thus, we find ourselves on the brink of history. The Indiana Fever are a team that is changing the definition of women's basketball and is no longer just a team looking to win. Larry Bird stepping in as the quintessential representation of championship DNA, and Caitlin Clark blazing paths as the face of a generation. One thing is certain, regardless of whether this gamble turns out to be the biggest change the league has ever witnessed or a confrontation too daring to endure, a new chapter in the WNBA's history will be remembered for years to come. Because this is about more than just coaching, it's about power, legacy, and the meeting point of the past and the future. The question now shifts to you. Do you think Larry Bird and Caitlin Clark can actually turn the Fever into a dynasty? Or is this a bold step that might have disastrous consequences? Please share your opinions in the comments section. Additionally, as this narrative is just getting started, remember to like, share, and subscribe.